Greetings, everyone. Email and Coffee with Tasha, Lucy, and Joy Brooks. Today I'm speaking with Sheila, and she will tell us how to pronounce her last name because it's way beyond my skill set. Sheila, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sheila Bélanger, and it's a French-Canadian last name, so that's what through Joy. And I live in the Pacific Northwest of the U.S. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm a transformation coach and an archetypal astrologer, and my focus is helping people shift limiting mindsets and opening up to other ways of knowing, broader awareness. So you're empowered, and especially my specialty is working with people what I call at the edge of change, which is all of us right now. But essentially, when you're really at that decision point personally, and you go, it's sometimes you need help. How do I get resources to go through the changes that I need to go through? So really
In
happy to be
preparation
here.
for, yeah, thanks. In preparation to doing this, I dug into my Carl Jung pocketbook and started coming up with all of these beautiful ways of looking at astrology through a different lens. Not the woo-woo lens, not the TV page 24, read your astrology, newspaper page 24, read your astrology lens, but more along the lines, and like you said, a transformation. Sometimes, oftentimes, we are going through things in our lives and they may be something that has happened before. So patterns, like, oh yeah, I've been here before, right? Type of a thing. Haven't I been here before? So you see patterns, or you see perhaps a huge challenge and you're frozen. And, Young would probably, if you were laying down on the couch or sitting next to Carl Jung, he would be discussing archetypes. He would be discussing your ego, your self, your path, your individuation path, where you go from ego to self and you become who you are. And that path, that journey is the hero's journey. Is the myth. It's all of those things that are part of astrology. Astrology is just not some kooky pseudoscience. Something I read, let me see if I could read it without making a mistake, by Anthony Stevens. He said, and he's a student of Carl Jung. Whenever a phenomenon is founded to be characteristic of human communities, irrespective of culture, race, or historical epoch, then it is an expression of an archetype of the collective unconscious.
Yep.
And that's what we're going to talk about, folks. How astrology is a part of the collective unconscious and how we can use it every day in, as a way of figuring stuff out or enjoying ourselves, just meditating, thinking of how we can become what we want to become, or perhaps use it as a tool. So I did ask, maybe too much information. I did ask Sheila to look my chart up. So, we could sort of use me as a guinea pig.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, why not?
Okay.
So what do you think? What would
Yeah.
you like to share with the audience to start off with?
Great. Thank you, Joy. And thank you so much for bringing in Carl Jung and archetypes, because I'm what's called an archetypal astrologer. There's many kinds of versions of astrologers. It depends on what the needs are and the interest. But what an archetypal astrologer does is recognize that astrology is basically very ancient, because all of our ancestors are sky watchers. We're meaning making people. And what our ancestors did is they had much clearer night skies than we do now in cities. And they could watch the planets as they moved around us on the earth. And they projected stories into those planets. They became mythic archetypal characters, and watching the movement in the heavens against the backdrop of what we call the zodiac wheel, which is a set of star patterns or constellations, they made meaning out of their lives. And for many of them, it was very practical meaning, like for example, in Egypt, when they knew when Sirius was the star Sirius was rising, it meant something about their farming and their seasonal techniques. So it's a very practical guide also by watching the night sky because it helped them know seasons. But to your point, a way to look at astrology is that it's a map of the heavens from an archetypal point of view in terms of our connection with it. And what you said, I love that you mentioned not necessarily a newspaper article like, okay, today is so and so, this is what you need to do, because that's more fatalistic or limiting. And what archetypal astrology does is recognize that the planets are archetypally true for you. So in a bit, when we look at your chart as an example, where the planets were at the moment of your birth, it's a symbolic map of you as a being. And it's very much what you said. It's a tool for individuation. It doesn't lock you in and say, Joy has said she's a sun sign Scorpio. We'll talk about more what that means. It doesn't limit you. It's just a facet of your being. So really, I want to start by saying astrology is a very powerful tool for self-growth and for individuation if you're drawn to that. And it mirrors a bigger version of yourself and can be used as a very practical tool to grow.
I was going to say something, and I remember looking here. Jung talks about synchronicity as a meaningful coincidence. And so the way the stars, the planets line up when you're born, that's a meaningful coincidence. And it can represent potential. What could be, not what's going to be. There is no deterministic fate. And, some people look at astrology and they use it as a tool that describes a fated, determined future. But that's not necessarily how everyone does it. So it's more of a potential. And that's the way we can use it somewhat as a psychological tool.
Yes.
So do you think that there's a place for us to start talking about how we apply our charts to our lives?
Absolutely.
How might we do that? And, you could do that as any example, or, you could bring me into it.
She's given permission.
We can talk about me because, hey, it's all about me.
Joy has given permission. I asked her. Okay. I'd love to go that way.
I give full permission.
Yeah, because I think having a demonstration or an example of how the astrology chart can support someone in their life growth is very practical. And it's like, oh, that's one way you can work with it. But before going there, I really want to riff off the synchrony piece, because people often say to me, well, how does it work, right, with astrology? Because they think sometimes it's more causal. Yeah, here come I love it that the doggies are here.
I thought they were going to crash into me.
Oh, that's great. Welcome to the conversation, girls.
Yeah, really. They're having their own conversation. I don't think they're saying nice things. Go ahead.
So the way that I look at it is there's no accidents, right? We can say it's a coincidence, but my own version of reality is my soul chose when I wanted to come into birth. And so for me, there's a choice of coming in on a soul level. You don't have to hold that, but that's how I look at it. So that the chart where the planets are in the heavens when I am born or when Joy is born, they line up to mirror the archetypal journey of that particular soul. And so there's this very strong quote we use as astrologers from ancient times: as above, so below, as without, so within. And so it's this correspondence that the external world is mirroring the inner world, and the inner world is mirroring the outer world. And so that's where it's not causal. It's for a living system growing together. Oh, is this Lucy?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Lucy. Welcome to the conversation.
I'm crying already.
She says, I want you to do my
All right,
chart,
Lou,
Sheila.
take it easy. Take it easy, kid. Take it
So,
easy.
so just to say that the particular perspective I'm holding is that as we talk about your chart a little bit, the planets are there to mirror archetypally aspects of yourself, and to from a place of potential. As you said, it's not about labeling you and boxing you. It's like these are aspects of joy's journey in life, and how you choose to development is your business. So that's when we look at the birth chart. But one other thing that I want to say as an introduction or a background is then what a lot of people are interested in their cycles. And what we're doing as astrologers is, when I look at your birth chart, that's a symbolic frozen moment in time, right? Over Queens, New York, where what was this guy doing, where Joy was born. But obviously the planets, from our perspective, keep moving. And as they move, they make angular mathematical relationships to where they were when you were born. And this is where an astrologer interprets cycles that you're in, because those mathematical angles have meaning. They make a certain, a challenging time or a supportive time. And that's really where the practical sort of real deep supportive astrology comes from, because you're like, oh, you're in this cycle. Again, not limiting you, but it helps you navigate. Right, here's a key archetype that's guiding me right now. How am I going to lean into this? What do I need to do this, and so forth? So I just want to give a little background material before we use your chart as an example.
Oh boy.
Okay, but anything you want to ask or say or comment on with that?
Astrology is highly mathematical.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, that's why it's astrology led to astronomy.
Yes, it did. Don't tell the astronomers
Right?
that, they get a little torqued.
The science, it's not, I don't like to use the term pseudoscience. It's a proto science, because it is. I mean, we're talking about, listen, Stonehenge, the pyramids, they were all built to align with the stars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they didn't do that. Oh, let's pick a star and put the building up. They did it because it was meaningful. It meant something. So that star was an archetype. They aligned things to that star. Then they set, Stonehenge itself. Each of the pillars have some function. Whether it's the moon, the sun, summer, winter.
Mm-hmm.
What other things what were they looking at? I don't, we don't know, because it wasn't written down. But they used those buildings as what was that, honey? As a woo woo? No, we're not talking woo woo. They used those buildings as a way to tell, as a calendar, for example.
Absolutely.
As a calendar.
Yep.
And a way to document what was, what will be, because again, there are cycles. Again, next year it will come around,
right,
and we'll know a year passed.
Mm-hmm.
We'll know when it's time to reap, when it's time to sow, when it's time to, last year the elk passed by at this time. Well, let's see, do they pass by? Son of a gun, they passed by at the same time. So they're beginning to, civilize themselves. So the concept of using the stars to do this is not, the most ridiculous thing in the world. There's quite a lot involved in that. And then to begin to tell stories based upon that, and to, use particular constellations or planets to tell particular stories. That's what people do. That's how we become a culture.
Mm-hmm.
Our tribe connects. We connect from one generation to the next. So these are very civilizing things. And I would suggest that people take a look at astrology as that and not just some pseudoscience.
Yeah, yeah. Well, to that point, Joy, there's a whole system of study called archaeoastronomy, which are scientists looking at the alignment, of some of these ancient uh, things that are built. And what you said comes to mind. If anyone has ever been to Newgrange in Ireland, which is north of Dublin, it's extraordinary. And when you go on a tour, it's an ancient, it's 5,000 years old. It's a Neolithic building. And it's set so that when you're inside the cave, inside of it, at winter solstice morning, the light comes in. And so it was a calendar for them to know winter solstice. And it's really incredible. And even if you go visit it not at winter solstice, they replicate that experience. And it's absolutely stunning to get that. Yes, okay, here we go. So yes, there's that. And what I find with astrology is some of how it works for you, you have a direct experience of it. Like, we're going to work with a chart moment, but I want to tell my story because like when you said it's a very mathematically precise thing. Oh, yes. So I first met astrology. I had just come out of college. I had a mechanical engineering background. And I did an astrology session, or I did a reading with an astrologer on a whim. And I went in like a scientist, like, what is this? And the astrologer blew my mind. It was so accurate. It was so personally helpful. I found myself to feel profoundly seen. How did she know that? And it was so amazing. So then I said, I got to figure out how she did that. So I spent 2 years after work, self-study astrology, okay, and I ended up becoming a professional astrologer. And I use my mathematical scientific engineering mind all the time when I'm looking at the patterns in the chart. So I just want to give that story because what you're saying is, there's a mathematical precision to astrology that is where the power of the interpretation comes from. So.
And again, that goes back to Jung, who was fascinated by numbers. It was the order of the universe. There were magical numbers that he talked about, and he had to. I mean, he was trying to understand the unconscious, to bridge the gap between the conscious and the unconscious. As you said, what is above, how it goes below. It's a cross. Mm-hmm. And that symbol is meaningful for a reason, because above, below, and your journey along the way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as humans, we cannot live without some spirit, some belief, some narration, without us breaking. Mm-hmm. Without that faith, whatever that faith is, will break if we don't have it. Or if we only have, let's say, our unconscious version, then we become possessed. Or we're, possessed with ridiculous things. Or if we only have the conscious version, then we become narcissists who are barreling ahead, blowing people away to get to where we've got to go. Yeah. It's that balance of the unconscious and the conscious. And, and it's also the seed of where we are as individuals, things that have happened to us that we've forgotten about. And where we're going. And as I said, sometimes you'll be in a situation where you meet someone and I've met this person before. I don't know where. And, deep down in our minds, they're the epitome of your mother. They act like your mother. They look like your mother. They sound, whatever it is. And you're in your mind, you're going, I don't know. I feel like I met, it's a deja vu. I must have met this person somewhere. but and understanding why this person reminds you of your mother could be very meaningful.
Yep.
We could
Yep.
blow it away and just say, well, tomorrow's another day. See you. Nice meeting you. But sometimes it's very powerful to have as much of ourselves in our own hands as possible, and to be kind to as much of ourselves as we could be, because when it's all said and done, that's, tomorrow morning when you wake up, that's who you'll be with, regardless of your mate, whoever that person is, it will be you waking up with you tomorrow morning.
So you remind me one of my favorite quotes is, wherever I go, there I am. Okay.
There I am.
It's like no getting away.
Exactly.
Well, this is a great lead in
No getting away.
what you said about the conscious unconscious, because as we talk about some parts of your chart, the planets are archetypes. They symbolize inner figures, but they're also connected to the collective, archetype. And like anything, there's layers. There's conscious and healthy expressions of the archetype. There's unconscious and unhealthy expressions. And so when we look at a chart, it really is a mirror of the complexity of an individual, because when we talk about like your sun sign in Scorpio, I'm going to start there, right? I've got Joy's chart right here, so I'm going to go. So I'll start with that as an example. So the sun for me is the conscious self archetype, or the hero heroine. I don't want to just genderize it, but it's the being on their life of individuation, their journey of individuation, and they're shining the light. Now, the zodiac, there's 12 different parts in the wheel. The astrologers divide the sky into 12 certain sections. I always use a roulette wheel analogy. Okay. It's like a roulette wheel with 12 slots. And the planets are like balls in the roulette wheel. So here you are, they're spinning around. Okay. Joy comes out, frees the roulette wheel. So the sun ball went into the Scorpio part of the roulette wheel. Then the astrologer, you're like, what the hell does that mean? Okay. Well, the zodiac sign is the energetic expression of the archetype. It's like the costume they wear. And Scorpio is a very intense, powerfully emotional costume. It says, if a planet lands in Scorpio, symbolically, your heroine, because you're female identified, right, Joy? I should have double checked that. But your heroine self, on her journey in life, everything has to be right to the core of it. No bullshit, okay? Scorpio does not half-ass. There's 2 speeds, on and off. And that can be incredibly empowering, and it can get you in a lot of trouble, okay? But just to start there, it's saying, okay, a core part of Joy's journey in life is to bring her penetrating emotional intensity to her life, to understand, to get real. It's like Scorpio wants things to be emotionally real. And it has a smell. It can smell when there's duplicity going on. So then you, as one who carries that archetype in your life, you have to keep growing and learning, how do I carry this in a good way for myself? Because sometimes unconscious Scorpio, you just get triggered and pissed off by idiocy, and then you lash out and you go, oh, maybe that's not quite what I wanted to do. Or especially if you smell, something's going on behind the scenes that's not fair, or is a power move. So, but that's an example of, throughout your life, you're going to keep developing the greater awareness and expression of your Scorpio, that particular Scorpio part of you. Now, does that make sense? I just wanted to give you an example, and if you want to make any comments, or
Is Scorpio? Is it also the eagle archetype? Is it sometimes considered the eagle?
There are several different animal beings that go with it. Yes, so Scorpio has 3 symbols that are often used: the eagle, the snake, and the phoenix. And they're different levels of Scorpio, right? And scorpion too.
And the phoenix.
Yeah, phoenix. So I've
crashed and burned so many times. Yeah, yes. I can't even begin to tell you.
Yeah. So you see, right now we're having an archetypal conversation. It's like I tell you a little bit about Scorpio, and you resonate with the phoenix aspect of that energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that, where astrology can be helpful, it's not limiting you, but it's mirroring a core part of you. That Scorpio, yes, I know this part of myself. And it is,
Mhm.
Scorpio is about life and death. And so you do get, when someone has strong Scorpio in their chart, they can have 5 lifetimes in one life, right? Because it's
Which
like,
is why my first business was called the Flying Dragon.
perfect, Joy.
I'm serious.
You didn't need to know your
Serious.
chart. You were just living your archetype, okay?
That's right. My when I went to high school, our mascot was was a goofy green and yellow dragon, but it was a dragon nonetheless, and I really connected with it. I really connected with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I began my business, I was looking for a URL, and I was like, Flying Dragon. It had to be Flying Dragon.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So all of the zodiac signs have elements associated with them, the 4 elements. And Scorpio is what's called a water sign. And the water signs, which are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, they're like they sound. They're very emotionally sensitive, and they're very fluid. And it isn't that you're not intellectual. You know, there's other things in your chart that mirror that, but it's like a felt sense in the emotions or the heart. And there's almost, like I always call, Scorpio energy has like X-ray vision in the heart. You can just feel when something's off, you know? And then it's like learning to trust that, right? Shall I
Oh
go
yeah.
to a different archetype, or is there more you want? You know, this is good, like giving an example of working archetypally.
And the funny thing is that for my all my life, I would be sitting doing something, and I would feel this is not right. I'd be like, well, where did that come from? Sometimes it's physical, so
Mhm,
maybe it's physical me, like something's wrong. I think I'm getting sick, or something's wrong. Something's about to happen,
mhm.
or this job is something's wrong here. It's not right. And it's happened to me over and over and over again. And in many cases, I will disregard it. And then when something happens, I'll be like, I wish I hadn't disregarded that.
Yep, yep, yeah. There's a gut
But,
knowing.
I mean, it's sort of like in hindsight, but I, I have to say that, the, when it happens, it's very strong. It's
Yeah,
it's
yep.
not like, oh, oh look, let's light a sagebrush and run around the house and make it all better. It's not like that. It's like something, I don't know what it is. And when it happens, I have synchronicities where I'll look at the time and it'll be 7:11, 11:11, 9:11,
Mhm.
3:11. I'm like, oh, stop, please. Because
Yep,
it's just that when that happens, I'm like, stop and think something's going on.
yep, yep. For me, what you're saying, Joy, where I perceive the Scorpio part of what you're saying, again, Scorpio wants depth. It doesn't want superficiality, and it wants
Right.
a realness. And if it's not there, make changes. It does not. It just isn't happy with suffering fools or, superficiality. It's like, make the change. This ain't working. Make the change.
Exactly.
Do it.
Exactly. It's, like, okay, so do it already. Do it. You said it,
Exactly.
do it.
Do it. Okay.
Do it. And
Um,
I'm very much, when I was younger, I had lots of doubt, and I would talk about it endlessly. And God bless my mother. She listened to every word I said. And as I got older, I realized, I think I said this before, like, I don't know. And I started realizing these are patterns. These are my patterns. This is what's right or wrong with me. These are my strengths or my weaknesses. This is where I keep visiting the same thing.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it either means that I'm not actuating anything, and it keeps on, I'm revisiting it, or these are just cycles in time, and you're gonna, it's gonna happen again and
Hmm.
again. Like
Hmm.
my husband would say, oh gosh, are we gonna argue about this again? And I would say, because it's the same argument, honey. Obviously you feel strongly, I feel strongly, it's not going away.
Yeah.
So either we reconcile it, or in a month from now or a week from now, we're gonna have the same argument.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So shall I
Um,
go to another archetype?
Oh, go
Yeah.
further.
Okay.
And this is the thing. Whether or not you believe in in astrology or not, this is how I would say applying it
Yes.
psychologically
Yes.
can help you realize, I'm not making stuff up about myself.
Right. Right. Exactly. And you said, Joy, when you called it a psychological tool, I totally agree. And I always will say when people are working with astrology or some of the courses I do with astrology, it's like you're the one in the driver's seat. It's not some external authority telling you who you are. It's just information or a pattern recognition that can empower you. That's really what
Right.
we're looking for. So it is very much a psychological tool. So the next part of your chart that I want to honor is called the moon in Cancer. Okay. And the moon is, I think of her as the instinctive nurturer. That's the archetype. She's many, many names, archetypally the great mother. But I like instinctive nurturer because the moon represents in your own being how you like to nurture and how you want to be nurtured. And just like the moon itself, it's very changeable archetype in us. It's not intellectual. It's very much a emotional, fluid, tidal kind of character. And here you have the moon in Cancer, another water sign like Scorpio. So we pause here and say archetypally, there's a lot of water here to start. Doesn't mean there's not other parts of your nature, but again, it reinforces the awareness, your emotions, your gut feeling on things is really important, right? And when you have moon in Cancer, you want to nurture, you want to take care of. You can choose lots of ways to do it, your dogs, children, your audience, but innately there's an emotional satisfaction in nurturing. And the main challenge when you have moon in Cancer is it can be you wear your heart on your sleeve and you can get sucked into taking care of people in a way that's not right for you. So there's always a challenge of self-care as well as care for others. So I just give that back to you, Joy, and see, if that supports or what comes up for you.
Um, I have always had um, odd friendships, and that was something that I looked at recently in my life, thinking, friends are hard to come by, and who you
Mm,
thought were your friends may not be your friends. You've got these fair weather friends, you've got these drinking buddy friends, you've got your high school friends, your work buddies, all these different friends. And I thought to myself, these people are not your friends. They might be your
mhm,
associates, they know you, but would they be there for you when all is said and done? And because I've had many instances where things were all said and done, I realized, no, these people are not there for me.
mm,
It's like,
mhm,
where are these people? Um, Superstorm Sandy, when my house got flooded, and
mhm,
it was like awful. Um, my sister was there, which really was amazing for me. And I'm not going to necessarily go into that, but my sister was there, and not a lot of other people were there.
mm, mm. Yeah.
Why? Because it's a difficult thing to deal with, and quite a lot of responsibility for a friend. What is a friend going to do? Come live with us? That's a lot, right? So I understand that, but it's also, we have to rebuild our house. Where is everyone?
Mhm, mhm.
So I that was the beginning of my reassessment of who are the people around me. It seems to me that I've got a bunch of drinking buddies, but nobody else. Everybody wants to have a good time. Oh, party, we'll be there. Oh, you're cooking, we'll be there. We're going on the boat, we'll be there. So I reassessed friendship and realized, first of all, how important that is, and it's not necessarily accessible for everyone.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that TV show, Sex in the
Yeah.
City, where she had those bestest friends, a group of bestest friends. I thought to myself, damn, I don't know anybody like that. I know people who have a bunch of friends, but they all get along and they all see each other all the time. And so that's where this moon in Cancer hits me hard, because I realized this, and I tried reaching back into my past with some of my earliest friends so that I could apologize, talk about things like, I remember this. Do you remember this? And see if I can, can sort of like tell the story in a sort of Wayback Machine way. Oh, this is what happened, but this is really how you felt. I didn't realize that. And not a lot of people wanted to participate in that re-examination. And as I said, friendship, I'm telling my audience right now, if you have friends, they're worth everything you have. When my husband passed away, I had someone reach out to me that I hadn't seen in a long time. And that person is a friend.
Yeah.
Is a real friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I realized that.
Yeah.
And, I'm lucky.
Yeah.
In that way. Not that I have lots of friends, but I'm lucky in the way that one person reached out when I needed them and stuck around and held my hand, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. 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 I'm really appreciating how you're saying this, Joy, because what I want to offer is you just demonstrated now the combination of Sun in Scorpio and Moon in Cancer. Okay, and I'll say how. Because that sensitivity and that care and that wanting to have connection, like Moon in Cancer says, I want to make family with you, right? But then the Scorpio Sun says, is this real? Like, I've just gone through this crisis. Are you showing up? And it's not against, it's not against or judging, but it's that this is a perfect example of where the archetypes in you need to also grow together. Your tender Cancer moon wants that belonging and that connection, and your Scorpio Sun can be saying that's all well and good, but in the bottom line, are they actually showing up? Is it real? Are they there in a crisis, or is it just good time? Not judging anyone, but it's like your Scorpio self would need to feel like it was real, right? And so that's just an example. What you just shared is like, that's an example of how two parts of your chart are growing in connection with each other. Yeah. I'd say,
I'm not making this stuff up. It is
okay.
real.
Yeah,
this is real stuff.
Okay, so now I want to go to, and I'm going to what's called your rising sign of Gemini. And I want to explain
this is where the Gemini comes in and screws my whole life around.
Oh, well, we'll talk about that. So let me explain to your audience what rising sign means. And this is why if you have a pretty accurate time of birth, it's really helpful. Because the rising sign says, okay, the moment this person was born, if we looked on the eastern horizon, what part of that star wheel was rising? What was just coming up on the eastern horizon? And of course, if you don't know the exact time, it's not very accurate. Doesn't mean you can't work with your chart. If you don't know your birth time, I'd be careful, but you happen to know it. And the rising sign is like your energetic calling card. When people first meet you, they meet your rising sign. Sometimes in astrology texts, they call it your persona, but I want to be careful because you're bringing in Carl Jung, and sometimes persona is seen as like a false self or a mask. And it can be, your rising sign in the chart can be a little bit of a sort of mask, but mainly it's like the first doorway in. So in your case, it's really stunning because Gemini and Scorpio are incredibly different signs. Okay. Scorpio is this deep water sign of intensity and realness. Gemini is called an air sign. It's very mental, it's ideas, and it's like it's curious. It wants to go everywhere, all kinds of ideas. It's got like, 5 different things happening once. And Scorpio's like, we're getting way too out there, Gemini. Get over here and get real. And Gemini's, oh, but there's this, and we could go here and we could go there. There's a deep curiosity. There's a love of conversation and ideas. And Gemini energy is really good at playing devil's advocate. It's like, oh, there's that, but what about this? It wants to see that other side of the coin. It's the twins, and its constellation is the twins. I should have said, and Scorpio's the scorpion, and Cancer is the crab. And that's that kind of shell. It's often seen as the sensitivity is held by a hard shell, and then it sort of goes around. But when you have Gemini rising, people may meet you first through your ideas and your conversation and your intrigue. What about this? We could do this. As they get to know you, they're going to maybe feel, or you're going to allow them to feel more of that Scorpio Cancer tenderness and vulnerability and emotional depths, and that's like a picture of those three parts of you.
And it's interesting because, first of all, I've always written, and it started out as being poetry.
Okay.
And I I'm not stealing it from the President Ronald Reagan, but I always thought of myself as a communicator.
Mm-hmm.
So I always wanted to make myself quite clear, and I would go to great lengths to make myself quite clear. I still do it. No, let me explain. I think you did. No, let me explain again then. So, and in doing that, I have a binary. So I look at things, and this is, how Scorpio, through the Gemini lens, it's either right or wrong, good or bad.
Exactly.
And I was, the way I have lived my life, and people say very often to me, oh, you're so negative. I'm a risk manager.
Mm-hmm.
You say, let's do this. Okay. Because in my mind, I was like, well, do I have time to do it? Is it going to, get in the way of dinner? Do I have the clothes? Whatever it is, I'm thinking all the way through. And if yes. If I have one no, I'll be like, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah.
And at work, somebody would say, oh, let's do this. And I'd be like, no, we shouldn't do that. People are like, oh, it's Miss Negative. What do you have to say about that, Joy? And I would describe the risk management. And it's probably, a lot of people say, for example, okay, Joy, you've retired and, your husband passed away. Why don't you travel? I'm like, And it's just an odd thing because I'll go through 9 things, well, at least 9 things, of why I don't want to travel. I've got the dogs. I don't have someone to travel with. It's a lot of money. What am I going to do about the house? I do a podcast. I mean, I will tell you so many reasons why I don't want to travel. And the point is, I'm going through the negatives. I'm not thinking of the positives.
Right.
I haven't even gotten there yet.
Yeah. So, Joy, this is so amazing. As you're talking, I just glanced over to your chart. So I'd like to bring one more example in from your chart of honoring this part of you, okay? And it is talking about 2 more planets in the sky at your birth. One is Saturn and one is Venus. And when you were born, those 2 were in the heavens together. So astrologers call that a conjunction. It would show up mathematically in your chart. And it means these 2 archetypes are joined. And they have a strong energy with each other. And they happen to also be in Scorpio. Okay. So we're intensifying the Scorpio. But what does it mean? Saturn is the builder, structure maker archetype. The one with the rings, like other planets we know have rings, but Saturn has the prominent rings. And this is, again, when you and I first were talking about doing this podcast, we were talking about how astrology, the history of astrology and some of the ideas. And this is actually for many of the planets, there's an understanding they got the archetype they did because of how the ancients saw them. So, or in modern times, how they were seen. Saturn is the ringed one, the boundaried one, right? So as an archetype, it's the structure maker, it's the responsible one, it's the executive, it's the one with boundaries, okay? I say with Saturn, BYOB, bring your own boundaries, okay? That's Saturn.
Oh, I'm definitely all about boundaries. I set them up all the time.
Okay, so Venus is the relational one, the lover. And for so many cultures, ancient cultures, she was seen as the goddess or the queen. and this planet has amazing cycles of change where sometimes the planet is an evening star, and from our perspective, sometimes it's a morning star. And the myth, and this is especially with Inanna in Mesopotamia, Venus became the evening star, was the lover calling you to the bedroom, and the morning star was the warriors waking you up to charge. And Venus has both those natures, right? Yes, the lover in us can be very, sensual or relational or magnetic. The lover in us can also say, I care about this, I'm taking a stand, and it's also fierce, right? But when Saturn and Venus are together, then we say, okay, we have the archetypes where the responsible one, the grounded one, is in relationship, is in connection with the relational archetype. So it often means in your life journey, when you're in relationship with people, a situation, ideas, a company, you're the one that's going to say, wait a minute, where's our structure? Wait a minute, how are we treating our employees? Venus, what's the relationship like? Are we ethical? Do we have our act together? Are we walking our talk? And people will say, I don't worry about that. Venus, Saturn, and you would say, I'm worrying about it. I got to be
I'm worrying
accountable.
about it.
Right? And Venus is also connected not just to relationships, but our personal resources like money, energy, time. It's also connected to our core values. So when someone has Venus and Saturn together, symbolically, part of their heroine's journey is, I need to feel like I'm walking my talk with my values, and I need to be accountable with how I'm spending my life energy. I don't want to run in the red, okay? So that's just
Not
another
only that,
example.
I need routine. I need routine.
Yeah,
I build
absolutely.
routines. Where
Yes,
there are no routines, I build them.
you got it. You value
Like
Venus and
somebody would
Saturn.
say, you have a checklist for that? Yeah. It's the second thing I did in the morning. Build a checklist. Every day there's a checklist.
Yes, yes. And I
Every
want to
day.
say, and also, Joy, I'm delighting this because those two are in Scorpio. So again, you see what I'm demonstrating for you and your audience. You start with the archetypes and you say, okay, but what sign were they in? Where were those two planets? They appeared to be in the Scorpio part of the sky when you were born. So then they bring in that deep emotional energy, right? And the reality check. And Saturn in Scorpio, this is a fierce character because it's like, I know you're bullshitting me. Deal with this. Okay. Like it really calls for real accountability, not superficial. Okay, that's all right.
Right.
Licking a promise. It's like, no. Is it really done? Is it really true? Is it really clean? And in a
And
similar
which is
way,
exactly why I couldn't, I was in corporate America for quite a long time. And I'd say 1990, around the late 1995, totally burnt out.
yeah.
I mean, totally burnt out. Now I got some other corporate jobs, and every single time, I would say to myself, and I couldn't put my finger on it. It was just like something here isn't lasting that
Yep.
long.
Yep.
And I had, I have loyalty. I don't want to be jumping around. I'm that routine person. I want to know, what do you do at 9:00 in the morning? What do you do at 9:30? What are you going to do? I want to know that. I don't want to wonder every day. However, I realized I can't do this corporate thing anymore because it's just not me. They're not letting me walk the walk. They want me to walk their walk, and I can't do it. I cannot say yeah when I mean no, because I'll be saying yeah, and
Mm-mm.
people will see it. They'll be like, what is wrong with that woman? She's not happy. So that's when I became a freelancer, and it made me nervous as heck, but it
Yeah.
also put me on the path to find out more about myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. About how old
So
were you?
I was responsible for
Yeah.
myself, and
Yes,
that
yes.
at least made me
Yeah.
feel like,
Yep,
okay, I'm going to screw it up, but it's me, I'm screwing it up. And when I screw it up, I'll turn around and say, you just screwed that up, and now you've got to fix it. And
yep,
I felt better doing it that way than having it in a corporate setting where I had to say to the boss, I just screwed that up and I have to fix it. And they say, well, you're fired. Don't worry about fixing it. Go. And that was uncomfortable for me. I'm like, no, I have to fix it.
yes,
No, you
yes.
have to leave now. You're getting escorted out of the building. That wasn't giving me closure,
Right,
because
right.
I had no. Yeah, it it's an issue of control, which is one of my big issues. It's like
Mhm,
wanting to
mhm.
control everything and
Right.
realizing I'm in control of nothing. The only thing I can control is what I do, or how I do it, or how I apologize for the process. So that's the only more or less control I have. How I react to something, not
Yeah,
how um necessarily how people are reacting around me.
right. You just
So
gave, Joy, I want to riff off that. You just gave a wonderful demonstration of Saturn in terms of self-accountability. Remember, we talked at the beginning of individuation? And so one version of Saturn is an obedient worker. Okay, you tell me what to do, I'll follow the rules, right? That's fine. That's one version of it. But as the person individuates and becomes to claim more and more their authenticity, then the Saturn becomes more, I'm being accountable to myself, right? The buck stops
don't
here.
hover over me.
Yeah, it's me, right?
Yeah, don't hover.
Yep,
Did,
yep,
did you do this? Did you do that?
yep,
Get the
yep,
heck away
yep,
from
yep.
me.
And you also alluded to, when I talked earlier, each archetype is very complex and multi-layered. And so the wounded side of Saturn that we all can carry symbolically is fear-based control. I'm freaked out. It's not going the way I want. So move aside. I'm going to take the reins, right? We all have that. As when you have a strong Saturn, and in astrology would say you have a strong Saturn for many reasons. When it's in the sign is your sun, but Venus is with it. And then you have this individuation journey that you just mentioned. What is control really for me? And how do I live for myself so that I have sufficient control that I feel I'm being self accountable? But I'm also growing out of old fear based patterns that limit me and others because I'm driven to be over controlling.
All right, right.
Right. So, um, now the other thing I would love to bring in is cycles as an example. Okay.
Mhm.
But I also just have to say, which is so amazing. So you and I are recording this in mid-January of 2025. In the night sky right now, Saturn and Venus are together in the heavens. They are so bright. And I know you said in your New York City, you don't necessarily see the planets, but you might even see them if it's a clear sky, because as we're recording, they are in the heavens. They're together in what's called Pisces. Another water sign is different than Scorpio. But I just am with synchrony. I had no idea what your chart was. I came on to do the podcast with you. You said, "Oh, by the way, here's my birth date." I ran the chart. I had no idea you had Saturn and Venus together when you were born. We're recording this with Saturn and Venus together in the heavens, okay? And so I just want to do a little shout out to
So
synchrony.
we've got some cycle going on right now.
We do, right. So, what I'm curious, may I talk about cycles with it? That's another way to demonstrate, because I
Please.
know I said it's a really powerful part of the tool to help you. And why I bring it up is because the astrological cycle that most people really relate to is our Saturn cycles. Saturn takes about 28, 29 years to go once around the zodiac wheel to come back to where it was when you were born. That's the classic Saturn return in the late 20s. If you've ever heard people talk about that, it means, oh, Saturn's come all the way back to the same place in the sky, the zodiac, when I was born. And Saturn, every 7 years, makes a mathematical angle to where it was when you were born. So it's making a mathematical angle astrologically to where it was in the zodiac. That's where the 7-year itch comes from. because a Saturn cycle is a reality check cycle. Remember, this is the builder, the structure maker. And this one, when you have a Saturn cycle, which will happen every 7 years in your life, some part of you is saying, time out, I got to reassess. Something's not working. Reality check. Wake up and smell the coffee. I always say that to people with Saturn cycles, so I love that we're doing email and coffee. And it isn't causal. Saturn's not doing anything to you. It's a natural archetypal cycle. And we who are, if you're sensitive to it, you notice in about every 7-year patterns, you're like, I got to make a change. Something about the structure in my life is not working, right? So I'll just pause here and let you speak to it. We can also look
Are
at
you telling
examples.
me that I'm in that cycle right now?
What? Well, what? I'm gonna
Are
go
you
look.
saying that I'm in that I'm set? It's a 7-year itch right now?
No, it's not. Well, there could be some other cycle going on because there's one you've already alluded to when you were 40, when you left your corporate gig. But where you are right now, you are not in a Saturn cycle. But I would say, because I'm looking at I would say you'd have it around age 67, 66, 67. So that would be the closest time for where you are now to when you had a Saturn cycle. I don't know if you remember anything of that time.
I'm 60.
I wasn't
How
going to
old am
say.
I'm
I wasn't
60.
going to say your age. I was
I'm
going to let you do
69
that.
now. It was 2 years ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
But what other people do for New Year's is they set up all these resolutions. They're like, I'm going to lose weight next year. But what I do is I look back and I say, okay, so what am I going to do next year? What am I going to focus on? Right. And the focus has been this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
The voice, the muse in the back of my head tells me absolutely nothing except it says, do it. Like, it's on. It green light, go. I'm like, would you like to, just give me no, just you'll figure it out, go. So the focus has been the podcast. This year I have strongly felt that something needs to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm more amenable to it. So, I gave in and I was like, okay, so where would I want to move? I was like, oh, Tennessee. I'm like, why did I say that? I don't know. Look for homes in Tennessee. So, I humored myself for a day and I looked for homes in Tennessee and I thought, what is going on here? And I'm like, something is telling me that I need to make a change. Do I need to move? Do I need to make a change? I'm not sure. I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm amenable to it. And I'm looking at things, like, should I turn TV off completely? Do I really need television? I could stream stuff. Should I, I still have, God bless me, I still have all of my husband's clothes. His phone. I can't turn his phone off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, is it time to turn his phone off? Like, I'm going to lose all his pictures. I'm going to lose his voicemail message. I'm going to lose, all the last text messages that he had. I'm like, I can't do that. So I'm like, okay, take it easy now. Hold back. Let's put that on hold for a second. So I'm trying to think of things that things that I could do. I took a look at my wedding band, my engagement band, and his wedding band. I was like, he's not going to wear that ever again. He's a ghost. I mean, really. And am I ever going to wear my wedding band again? I have this fear that my wedding band, my hand's going to like blow up and I'm like, I can't wear rings anymore. I'm just afraid that my hands are going to swell up so I'm like, so what should I do with my wedding band? So I brought them in to get, a quote on them. And I'm thinking maybe I'll, turn them into another piece of jewelry. I don't know. I'm doing some things. I'm trying to investigate the things that I 2-3 years ago when he passed away. This is going to be year 4. This May will be 4 years. So I'm investigating those things that normal widows do, or some widows never do, or some widows do the day after their loving, blessed loving one passes away. They literally pack everything up and throw it away. I'm like, I couldn't do any of that. I have all of his clothes, his coveralls occasionally in the winter weather. When it gets really cold, it's 15 degrees out in New York, folks. I put on his coveralls on top of my clothes when I go outside. I'm like, thank you, honey. Thank you very much. So I can come up with 5 reasons why not to throw them away. But I'm asking myself now more than ever, golly gosh, gee, it's time to pack some stuff up. It's time to move on.
Yeah. Gosh, what I really hear too, that I want to reflect back to you is, you talked about the loyalty that you carry, and what little done. And when I say very clearly, we're not doing your full chart, so I'm just giving pieces of it. So it's also the sample we're giving people is that there's more to the chart, but the fact that there are 10 planets that astrologers work with, Joy, when they're interpreting a chart, 3 out of your 10 are in Scorpio. So that again has that energetic of depth, transformation, but it ain't over till it's over, right? So there's a thoroughness that's very, very strong. And so that loyalty, that discernment with it. But I'd like to talk about one more character as a cycle, maybe one example if we have time for it, because it's what you just said. So there's a planet called Uranus or Uranus. It just depends on how people want to pronounce it. It's the maverick archetype. It's the change agent. Okay. It's the one that won't conform. And just to tell you the astronomy that's so delightful when it was discovered, like all the other planets I'm going to show you here, they go around their axis like this, right? Except for Uranus, its axis is tilted and it goes like that. So it doesn't follow the rules. It doesn't do it the way everyone else does. So this maverick archetype is really saying, be who you are, liberate yourself, free yourself. And 2 things you've named is, like Saturn, Uranus has very specific cycles. It takes 84 years to go around the zodiac wheel once and return to where it was at birth. So, but every 21 years, you have a Uranus angle, a mathematical angle from where it was at your birth. Well, age 40 for people of your generation is called Uranus opposite itself. Uranus has gone halfway around the zodiac wheel. And it's classic maverick time. This is when you told me when you were burned out with corporate and you had to leave. And people will recognize 40, again, older generation. The younger generation has the cycle a little bit later, but it's like 40, I got to be me. I got to blow up the status quo. I can't keep doing this. It's not me. I'm not authentic. I just can't do it. So as you were telling me your story, I can't help it. Astrologers think that way. Oh, she was 40. She was having a Uranus cycle, right? And it just, this need to be deeply authentic and to blow up the cages, inner and outer cages that were holding you back, right? Does that make sense in that time of your life?
I got married when I was 40 and we moved to Washington State when I was 40.
Okay.
So a lot of things happened at the same time.
Yep. Pretty big changes.
A lot of big changes.
And
I can't even go into them. We'll go down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
But suffice it to say, a lot of changes in 1995.
Yeah. So I want to bring you current because I want to demonstrate respectfully where astrology in terms of cycles is really helpful to an individual. So I'm doing this on the fly because of the data you gave me, but I'm with your chart and you have right now 3 cycles with Uranus in your chart. Okay, 3. And they're all simultaneous because of characters in your chart. So one is, and I'm going to actually give you the data because I don't know you at all, but I'm thinking she wants the data. I don't want to just do a half-ass job. So one of the cycles is Uranus to your Venus, your relational one, right? And this cycle to just get really clear when it starts. Okay, so it starts exactly in June of 2025 and goes until March of 2026. A Uranus-Venus cycle, its archetypal theme is a radical change of your relationships, your values, and what you spend your life energy on, with the desire to be more free, to be more authentic, to have more spaciousness. Now, I just quoted you exact timing from a mathematical point of view. Most people who are sensitive feel the cycle coming at least a year before, and they're still working with it. So does it make sense to you, Joy, what I'm saying in terms of this big, got to make some big changes around relationships? And here you are talking about my husband's possessions. What do I do? Right. But I want to give it back to you because I've just given you an interpretation.
Well, as I mentioned, at the end of the year, I do think about what's my focus. And I wanted to work less. Now, at 69, you'd think, aren't you retired? And I'm essentially retired. I still do a little email marketing, but I thought to myself, I was like, I know making money is pretty good. I know everyone wants to make money. I know that I'd like to be able to have some money, extra money, because I'm always, my personality, I'm always afraid that I won't have money. And now that I'm a single widow, I don't have the resource to look at someone else to help me make the money. So I'm aware, very much aware, that I need to think to the future about money to make sure I'm comfortable. And when I say comfortable, I mean comfortable in my head and comfortable on the planet,
Yep.
Food,
Yep.
Shelter, etc. So I'm thinking of all of these things and being very practical, thinking, okay, I've got to come up with a plan. And I don't have one. I have some of the pieces. Well, perhaps I'll get rid of this. So part one of the plan appears to be shed the excess.
Mm-hmm.
That's the easy thing to do. So
Yep.
shed the excess.
Yep.
So that's what I'm doing now. Or at least I'm thinking about it. Now, I've been thinking about it for a while, and I keep putting it off, thinking, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll just throw this away. So I'm like, I take one thing out, look at it, go, I don't need that, and I throw it away. Oh, okay, I'm done. And I'm like, you know what? It's more than you were before. You did get, you made a baby step, because I can't just throw everything away.
Right.
One of the things my husband said to me was, when I pass on, I want you to move. And I'm like, no, it's not happening, because that's a complete cut to my past. And my past is very important. The other thing was, he would always say to me, you got to go upstairs into the attic and throw all that stuff away. And I'm like, there's not that much stuff up there. We're not talking about furniture, and it's papers and pictures. And he goes, yeah, get rid of them. I'm like, I can't get rid of, there's papers up there from my mother and father.
Yeah.
I can't throw them away. It's like some cultures don't want you to take photographs, because if you do, you take a picture of their soul. Like, I can't throw papers that belong to my father and mother away. I'd be throwing their soul away.
Yeah.
And he's looking at me, when he was alive, like, what are you talking about? But I believe that.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult for me to get rid of stuff that is the essence of someone's soul, which, oddly enough, my husband's clothes, his shirts are very meaningful to me, because he didn't just wear a shirt. He wore like an Hawaiian shirt that was so much his personality. So those big palm trees, or the colors specifically. I mean, he was not a thoughtless dresser, but he was on the verge of being vain. He'd be in the bathroom and I'd be like, honey, you ready? Let's go already. Me, my hair, what, you know, I'd be like, my hair's done. Let's go. Makeup. No, he'd
Yeah.
be like, be like, you got no hair in your head. Huh? What are you doing? And so, you know, so I can't throw his clothes away. I
Yes.
cannot throw them away.
Okay. I hear that, Joy, and I want to give you 2 more cycles that are supporting this challenge you've got, right? So I'm going to bring
Yep.
2 more parts of your chart in, and that's it, because it can get overwhelming when we, try to look at the whole thing. But when you were born, the planet Pluto and the planet Jupiter were also right together, right? So remember, it's like the Saturn, Venus in the heavens, so they were right together. Now, Jupiter is the archetype of the teacher or the guide or the wise one. It's all about your belief systems and your truths. Pluto is the transformer archetype. It's the one about deep systemic change. It's named after the deity of the underworld, the god of death. And so a Pluto-Jupiter archetypal combination in a chart speaks to belief systems in the individual that are very deep and all or nothing, Pluto. Okay. Again, we see the repeated theme here, Joy, of no bullshit, like right there. The dilemma with that archetypal signature is you can get locked into certain beliefs, right? It's like, these are my truths. This is how it is. I'm not saying this critically, but it can be a sort of, this is how I think about it, and that's it. I hold on to it very deeply. Well, you have 2 more Uranus cycles, same timeline, spring of 2025 till spring of 2026 exact, but again, you're already in the field of it, that would want you to wake up those patterns. It doesn't mean you let go of your parents' things or your husband's things, but you're in a cycle that's challenging you to liberate yourself more and look at where that some of the Jupiter beliefs of till death do us part, Pluto, got to hang on to it. There's some cyclic influence that's challenging you to say, oh, do I have to do it? That level of holding on, right?
So you're going to love this. So resolution time. Probably, I started thinking in November, like, what is next year going to look like? What do I want to do? I want to learn Hebrew. What? What do you want to learn Hebrew?
Cool.
Yeah, I want to read the Bible in Hebrew. What? Where did that come from? So I'm taking Hebrew and reading the
Yes.
Bible.
Yes. I love it. Okay, because I get excited as an astrologer because I hear the archetypal Jupiter thread. The wisdom one, the teacher, the wise one, and you came out of the blue. That's the quality. Okay, talking
Came out of
again.
the blue. It was like,
That's
came out of no.
That's Uranus. Okay, from an astrologer's point of view, that smells like Uranus. That's how that archetype shows up. Unexpected, wild ass. Where did this come from? Left field, and yet it comes to symbolically wake you up to something. So I just hear it. You're waking up your wisdom ways, and I'm assuming it's like your faith tradition wisdom ways. You're activating more of
There's
that.
a few other things that are going on. I love stories. I love reading. Love stories and reading. And I love it's called world building, those types of books where you read a story and they completely build a world. Like it's it's not like any world you know of. It's not like saying, remember so and so in the year 73. No, it's like a world you've never been where. So I read a lot of books like that. And as I said, from a very young age, I wrote. And I always wanted to write big time. I wanted to be an author. As a matter of fact, I wanted to write for television. I wanted to do those things. That was what I thought I was going to do. Even though I came out of school with a degree in the classics and I wanted to be an archaeologist, I was putting all of these things together, and still to this date putting them together. I want to write about something that I feel passionate about, that only I can share my world view.
Yep. Yep.
And the question was, and that worldview is, that's where I was like, oh, well, if I learn Hebrew, I'll start reading the old stories. And those old stories are not, I mean, for the religious people out there that believe the Bible that, came out of the mouth of babes, I'm not disputing what you feel, but I'm saying that these stories are incredible, cultural, archetypal, hardcore, man meets God stories. These are, woman meets God stories.
Yes.
Man and woman meet God stories.
Right.
These are really, these are telling us the truths.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether we believe it's from God or which God we believe in, I really don't care. These are very essential truths.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Finding them in the core language is what I wanted to do. And then I thought, you know what, as I start hearing these stories in the mother tongue, I think I'm going to be able to put my story together. The story in my head
Right.
is about a woman who, a strong woman, a strong woman who lives in a particular age in biblical times. And I'm going to tell the story from not the religious biblical sense, but from the cultural biblical sense,
Mm-hmm.
like an epic.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
going to world build from the late Bronze Age.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the story I'm telling you.
So let me
That's
give you.
my Jupiter and Pluto,
There you go.
and my Saturn and Uranus,
Well,
and
Uranus activating the maverick, activating it, waking it up.
yeah,
So a couple things to mirror back to you is the Jupiter Pluto wants comprehensive change. Pluto wants change. It's a deep transformer. And Jupiter Pluto says, I want to change minds. I want to change attitudes. I want to change beliefs. I want truths. I want wisdom ways that are transformative. Okay. Now, again, you and I are doing this off the cuff. I didn't know your chart until we came on to record. At your birth, Jupiter and Pluto are in the sign of Leo, okay, which is a fire sign about creativity, visibility, and artistry. So what you're just describing to me is a person, I'm interpreting, you're feeling that Uranus cycle that's waking up your desire to get to these deeper truths so that your artistry, your what you want to write, your visibility, your Leo creativity can come out more authentically. Right? It's like you are just
yeah,
describing the cycle, and I'm interpreting it for you. But again, we're giving your audience an example of where archetypal astrology can be a psychological tool,
right.
and I hope a supportive tool for you in the current journey you're in.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would be doing this. I have been doing this regardless.
Right, right.
But hearing these things, I'm thinking, well, you know, to some extent, I'm being validated.
Right.
So I don't think to myself, am I freaking crazy or what? Like, what am I doing? Like, most people would be on a cruise ship. What are you in the Bahamas? What are you doing? Vegas, whatever, what?
Right, right,
And I'm like, no, that's not me. And
right.
I'm so, it's not that I, it's not that I am every 6 months grabbing some new trend.
Right, right.
It's each thread that I do weave is of the same length, breadth, color. It complements what's already been there. You're
Mm-hmm.
not looking like some mishmash of colors in my life that have no pattern.
Right,
It's like if anybody were
right.
to look at my life, they would be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
she's a pain. Yeah, she'd do that. Yeah, yeah. You know, she's crazy, but she's crazy. Like this is what she'd do. You know.
Well, Joy,
So yeah. So
when
you know.
you when you say that, what I'm giggling at is I don't know how countless times I don't work too much now doing charts with people because I'm my center of gravity is coaching. But when I worked, because I'm 40 years an archetypal astrologer, so I've worked with a lot of clients in 4 decades. And almost to the T at the end of a session, especially if you're talking cycles, they go, "Oh, I'm not crazy. Oh, and it again, it's not causal. The planets are not doing anything to you. They're mirroring something that's archetypally already happening in you. And for many of us, that sort of mirroring it's not external validation, but it just, oh yeah, okay, yeah. I'm not crazy. That's what I need to do, right? That's again an example of where when the tool is used well, it can be very life enhancing and it can support the psychological growth. Now, the caveat is like anything, like the bearer beware, if you're going to work with an astrologer, you need to ensure that person is wanting to meet you as a whole person and support you in your complexity and your wholeness and not give you a cookie cutter interpretation, which would be more along the lines of what you read in the newspaper. And I'm not dishing sun sign astrology because the sun sign in our charts is very, very powerful. But I'm just sort of saying to your audience, if they get intrigued listening to us, like, oh, maybe I want to go work with an astrologer, interview them, find out their point of view. Do you feel like they're going to, you know, enhance the complexity, support and enhance the complexity of who you are, and not have an attitude that boxes or it limits you. So I'm on my soapbox for a moment because I really hope I'm demonstrating for you and your audience ways that astrology can be enhancing and supportive and not, limiting you in some way.
Yeah, you know, there are a lot of grifters, and in every business and
Right.
everything, there are a lot of
Right.
grifters. So you really need to be aware of who you're. I mean, there are grifters that you think are your friends. So your husband may be a grifter. You need to know who you're involved with and be able to trust them. And when you do have that trust, again, that's that friendship thing.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing when you do have that trust and you do build that relationship and you're able to work off of each other in whatever that relationship is. And if that relationship happens to be you found somebody that has an ability or a skill or whatever that can support your skills, that's a very valid, important, and fabulous relationship. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to have someone, a friend, who just doesn't say, or perhaps it's a support, um, someone in support, for them to be able to say to you honestly, not, do I look fat in this dress? Oh no. For them to say, it's not that you look fat or don't look fat. Are you comfortable?
Right.
Are you
Right.
look at yourself in the mirror? Is that who you want to be? Like, what are you doing? Like, does your underwear show? Do you care if your underwear shows? Like, how much of your underwear is showing?
It's like,
All of it? Do you really want to do that? So, you know, to have people around you like that, whether it's a service or a friend or a family member, or your daughter, your son, your uncle, your husband, your wife, whatever it is, your dogs, whatever it is, those I'm sorry, okay, I made her kiss me. Those relationships are very important.
yes. Yes.
Very important. I
Absolutely.
mean, I can't people, I often say to myself, I'm not, being a widow, I am not lonely, I'm alone.
Yep. Yep.
And when I say that word alone, I'm like, ooh, that scares me. And then I think to myself, yeah, but your entire life, all you said under your breath in every situation was, can you just leave me alone? So you got what you wanted.
Yeah.
Now you got to deal with it. You
Yeah.
made your bed. Now lay
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah.
And realize that you enjoy, you know, honestly, I'm very comfortable with myself. I'm not as comfortable with myself in groups because I tend to become watered down. Well, I don't know how to explain it.
Mhm,
Watered
mhm,
down.
mhm.
I either, want to raise my hand and say you're all a bunch of buffoons, or I just sit there and go, oh, I shouldn't say anything. I'll just, or okay, all right, and I do stupid things because I'm with a bunch of stupid people. So,
Dear,
so
dear Joy, your Scorpio showing, darling.
I know, I know.
And I mean that
So,
respectfully because it is like, be real. I mean, that's
yeah,
the great call from Scorpio energy in any way it shows up in a person is, could we be real together, right? And if we can't, then let's not waste our time, right?
that's someone's.
It's
So,
that kind of invitation. Yeah.
I would suggest that as a tool that everybody learns a little bit about themselves
Yeah.
as much as they can,
Yeah.
and hopefully in that process nobody's telling you who you are, but they're just sharing, again, that
Mhm.
word, your potential.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And um if they can recognize your skill set and they offer like, oh, you're this type of a person, have you considered doing this? Potential. And you're like, no, that I don't want to do that. Or, oh, let me think about that. I haven't thought about that. I had to think about my personality and what I wanted to do. And I realized I don't want to lead people because I don't do too well in a group of people. So I'm not a people person. Don't make me your boss. I'm not going to
Mhm.
be telling people what to do. If people come to me in a boss situation and they're like, I was going to come in on Tuesday, but I won't be able to come. Just tell me you're going to be in on Tuesday or not. I don't need to know why. You can't make it fine. Don't give me an excuse. I won't be able to be in on Tuesday. Okay, thank you for telling me. So, no, I'm not your boss.
Don't go there. Yeah.
Am I a project manager? Well, not if it's people project, but if
Mhm.
it's things project, things, yes.
Get
And I realized these things and I kept moving along.
right.
And there were painful times when I would say people rejected me because just because I know who I am doesn't mean that they know who I am.
That's right. That's right. And what you're saying, Joy, really comes to my heart, which is most of us are enculturated. You can't get away from it. And so, put on your face and be what others want you to be. And particularly for a certain generation of women, that was very much, a pattern. And that's one of the places where I feel like astrology is a powerful tool for people if it resonates for them. Because again, you and I have demonstrated a little bit of a kind of mirroring. And if a person gets mirrored in a way that's accurate, it strengthens their ability to just stand and no, this is who I am, and to question the internal programming and the cultural, uh, I'm going to say, the cultural programming to be who you're not. So that's the other reason. I mean, I love the tool because it's like, how do you be more who you are? Because if most of us could do that, the world would be a lot better off. There was
Mhm,
be a lot less BS that we'd be wrestling with, if we had folks that are just like, this who I am, and this who you are, you be you, I be me. How are we going to make the world better, right? So,
mhm.
and
And one of the biggest things that I needed to do for myself, and these are habits that we all have for whatever reason, and that control issue that I had, that obsessive compulsive disorder that I needed to be in control, I recognized it, oh gosh, I'd like to say a little bit more than 10 years ago. And here, 10 years ago, that would put me in my late 50s, mind you. So my entire life, I wrestled with control.
Mm.
And maybe it really was when my husband got cancer. Maybe it was really then when I said to myself, guess what? You're not in control. He's not in control.
Yeah.
No one's in control. We have no idea what's going to happen. And all we can do is make the best of it.
Yep.
And it was sort of the period at the end of the sentence while I was struggling at control, and I realized I needed to recognize it when I saw it bearing its evil head. I needed to snap the habit right then and there, which meant just change, change something. Go for a walk. I don't care what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Change the action you're about to
Yeah.
take. Do not take action and move it to another, go somewhere else. Change the habit right there. So I guess I was doing a lot of walking. And I realized that some of us have very built-in, ingrained personalities, persona, whatever you want to call it, that we don't like.
Mm.
Another one, being envious or jealous, or, even hateful, right? These emotions we all recognize in ourselves. We sometimes act on them. But if we recognize them and if we say, I really don't like that feeling, I don't want to be there again and again and again. Let's think about it. So, I removed the control issues, or at least I work on them all the time. I recognize the pattern. I recognize that feeling of jealousy and envy, where gee whiz, they're just at such a great point in their lives. They've got so much. They're beautiful. They're rich. They've got a nice house. They're traveling. Whatever the heck it is, right? I wish I could have that. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You wish you were comfortable in what you're thinking in your head that they are, because they have those things that you don't have. So what is it really that you're saying?
Yep.
And that's when I sort of said, okay, these are the patterns. When I feel a challenge, I'm going to look to someone else to see what they're doing so much better than I am. What are they doing that I'm not? That's really the jealousy. That's really the envy.
Right. Yep.
So we all need to be able to recognize some of these patterns in ourselves and to try to think, why am I feeling jealous, envy, hate, fear? What, these things that are going on in our lives? Why?
Yeah.
Because as soon as you keep on saying, and I do that, I love that why thing. Why, until you come to the core. Because I'm totally insecure. Okay, if you could do that, you could begin to solve your problems. You come to the core of the matter and you're like, okay, so I need to build up my confidence.
Right.
How do I
Right.
do that? Oh, okay, that's the next thing. We got rid of that clutter. Now we're at the core of the matter. I guess I need to do things that make me feel good. How do I
Yep.
do that?
Yep.
That.
I love you saying this because, again, reflecting back to you, I feel the gift of Scorpio, because Scorpio energy, again, that's the sign. It's an energy of the archetypes. It's a costume. Scorpio says, and what's underneath, and what's underneath, and what's underneath. Because when you get to the root of something, Scorpio as a gift, as energy says, okay, if you get to the root of it, you can change it, right?
Right.
But if you're dealing with the superficial level of it, it's not going to change. Right. So that, you just demonstrate, I'm listening to you again through the ears of my astrologer self and go, there is the medicine of Scorpio and what's underneath and what's underneath. Okay, now we got it. Now we can uproot it. We can change it. We can do what we need to do. Right. So I want to check in because I've got a couple resources that I want to.
Yes, please.
I'm getting a little echo.
I was going to say, let's wind up. So why don't you share some resources with people and also share some, if you're wanting to share some social, easy social places or places people can find you on the net.
Great. Well, the main thing, I'm going to hold this up because I demonstrated looking at your sun sign your moon sign, and your rising sign or your ascendant. And I love Chani Nicholas's work. She's an excellent astrologist. She has an app. It's really a phenomenal resource. And her book, You Were Born for This, is a really, Chani Nicholas, is a wonderful, easy way for people to understand their sun sign, their moon sign, and their rising sign. And she calls it, You Were Born for This, Astrology for Radical Self-Acceptance. I highly recommend her because you will not read the book and feel like you're being boxed. You will probably read the book and laugh and go, oh, yeah, that's me. Okay. So she's one resource I'd give to people. And she has a free app, Chani app. You can just download it on your phone and it'll give you like information. Okay, there's a full moon and here's some things you could be thinking about. Now, she's a little bit more on the, I want to say, the non-traditional spiritual side. So she'll give you like mantras, affirmations, light the candle for this. So if that's not your cup of tea, you might not want to. But I think you'll enjoy the book. So it's just a good resource for people. The second general astrologer team, I'd say astrobutterfly.com. astrobutterfly.com. They have a wonderful blog that helps you understand current cycles and what's going on. And I find it's a little bit maybe too astrology for some people, but in general, you can understand what they're saying. So those are two, right off the top, I'd say general resources for astrology if you want to go further with it. I have a podcast, a weekly podcast called Astrology Alchemy podcast. You can look for that, Astrology Alchemy podcast. And I do talk about current cycles and I do try to speak English like I've done with Joy. So you can say, okay, what does Sheila say about what's going on? And you can just go listen to it or you can download it. And the final thing is, because of your audience, I want to give a gift to you and your audience. I have a series of short 2-hour digital courses on cycles, like Saturn cycles in your life or Uranus cycles in your life. And my website is ontheedgesofchange.com. Ontheedgesofchange.com. It's all together. If you go /astrology page, you can have any of those, any of my courses for free. And there's a coupon that goes with it. You put this in your show notes, but it's Joy Astro, all uppercase. JOI Astro. If you put that coupon code in, you pick whatever one you want, put that coupon, you get it for free, okay? Because it's a gift to you and your community, and particularly if people got intrigued with the Saturn cycles, or Uranus cycles, they can go buy one of those get one of those for free. So,
thank you very much. I will put them down below. You will send them to me so that I can put them down below. And it's been so much fun talking with you. It's like I could continue to do this the entire night, but it's only because we're talking about me. And it's all about me.
And Joy, thank you, because, we talked about this before we started the recording. Your willingness to be available. Yes, it's all about you, but there's some vulnerability in there. And you allowed me with you to sort of demonstrate a way that astrology could help somebody or support someone in their individuation process. So I deeply respect your willingness to be a guinea pig, an astrological guinea pig with me. So.
Well, I tend to, I have these tendencies, and I don't like to call it superstitious to make it sound like I believe in anything, but I believe in anything until it's, if you could prove it's wrong, I don't believe in it. But, do I believe in ghosts? Yeah. You can't prove it wrong.
Right.
Do I believe in UFOs? Yeah. You can't prove it wrong. Time travel? Yeah. I mean, like magic? Yeah. You can't prove these things wrong. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're a little wacky, but
yeah.
So I go with the flow. I mean, in here I am saying that I'm risk management. I'm so serious, and I believe in all these wacky things.
See, there's the complexity of a human being, right? Archetypal complexity.
I call that my Gemini.
Yeah.
I tend to amaze myself sometimes.
What a great quote. Well, thank you, Joy. I've had so much fun talking to you, and bless your audience. I hope it serves them and supports them in their own individuation journey.
Very good. Thanks so much, Sheila. Take care.
You too. Okay.